When you grow up as Alexander Wellington's son, every decision is made for you before you can even consider the alternatives. My father, the visionary founder of Wellington Global Investments, had planned my life with the same meticulous precision he applied to his multi-billion-dollar portfolio. "Remember, Ethan," he would say, straightening his custom brioni tie, "a Wellington doesn't simply succeed, we define what success means." Our estate in the Hamptons was the physical embodiment of that philosophy: 12 acres of manicured perfection, a 15,000 square foot main house, and a staff that anticipated your needs before you recognized them yourself. From the outside, it looked like paradise. From the inside, it felt like a beautiful prison. By 28, I had dutifully checked every box on my father's master plan: Wharton MBA, summa cum laude, vice president at Wellington Global, and engaged to Sophia Lancaster Pierce, daughter of my father's oldest friend and business ally. The merger of our families was as strategically sound as any business acquisition in my father's illustrious career. There was just one significant complication: I had fallen desperately, inconveniently in love with someone else. I met Olivia Morales during a charity gala at the Plaza. While navigating the usual crowd of socialites and business associates, I quite literally bumped into her as she balanced a tray of hors d'oeuvres. "I'm so sorry," she said, horrified as a mini crab cake tumbled to the floor. "Entirely my fault," I insisted, helping her steady the tray. Our eyes met, and something shifted in my carefully ordered world. Her warm brown eyes crinkled at the corners when she smiled, a genuine expression rarely seen in my social circles. Later that evening, I found her in the hotel kitchen, expertly directing a team of sous chefs through the chaos of feeding 500 Manhattan elites. "I'm sorry again about earlier," I said, feeling strangely nervous. "I'm Ethan, by the way." "Olivia," she replied, barely looking up from the delicate chocolate structures she was assembling. "And unless you're here to help plate these desserts, Mr. Wellington, I'll have to ask you to leave my kitchen." She knew who I was. Of course she did, but unlike everyone else in my life, she didn't seem particularly impressed by the fact. "Hand me that piping bag," she commanded, and somehow, I found myself following her instructions, spending the next hour helping her team plate desserts while wearing a $5,000 suit. It was the most exhilarating evening I'd had in years. I learned that Olivia was the hotel's executive pastry chef, having worked her way up from dishwasher over 10 years. She'd never attended culinary school but had apprenticed under renowned chefs in kitchens across the city, developing her signature style through relentless practice and innovation. "Cooking isn't about following recipes," she told me as we shared a staff meal after the event. "It's about understanding ingredients so completely that you know instinctively what they need to become their best selves." Her philosophy resonated with something long dormant inside me. I began finding excuses to attend events at the Plaza, always making my way to the kitchen afterward. Gradually, our conversations extended beyond those stolen moments. Coffee after her shifts turned into walks through Central Park, which evolved into dinners at hidden neighborhood restaurants where no one recognized the Wellington air. Olivia showed me a New York I'd never known existed despite living there my entire life: vibrant cultural festivals in Queens, family-owned bistros in Brooklyn, bustling markets in Chinatown where vendors greeted her by name and always insisted on giving her something extra. For 8 months, I lived a double life: corporate scion by day, myself by night. With Sophia, I attended opera galas and charity auctions, making appropriate appearances in the society pages. With Olivia, I learned to make tamales using her grandmother's recipe and debated the merits of different chocolate origins while walking along the Hudson at sunset. I knew it couldn't continue indefinitely. The reckoning came during the annual Wellington Foundation benefit, where, ironically, the Plaza was catering. Sophia was discussing wedding venues with my mother while my father entertained potential investors. I excused myself, ostensibly to make a phone call, but in reality to seek out Olivia. I found her in a service corridor, directing her team with her usual quiet authority. When she saw me, her professional mask slipped momentarily, revealing the warmth I'd come to crave. "You shouldn't be back here," she whispered as I pulled her into an alcove. "I can't do this anymore, Liv," I said, the words tumbling out before I could reconsider. "The engagement, the company, all of it, none of it is what I want, Ethan," she sighed, her eyes sad. "You have responsibilities, a family legacy." "I love you," I interrupted. "That's the only thing that feels real in my life right now." Before she could respond, the service door swung open. My father stood there, his expression unreadable as he took in the scene before him. "Your mother is looking for you," he said coldly. "Your fiancé is about to give her speech." The next morning, I was summoned to my father's office at Wellington Tower. The space was deliberately intimidating, 60 stories above Manhattan, with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the empire he'd built. I've overlooked many of your indiscretions over the years, he began, not bothering with pleasantries. But this public display with the help is beyond acceptable. She's not the help, father. She's an executive chef at one of the finest hotels in the city. A cook, he sneered. You would throw away your birthright, your responsibility to this family, for a cook? Her name is Olivia, I said, a calm determination replacing the anxiety I'd felt walking in. And yes, I would. What followed was the argument I'd been rehearsing in my mind for months. My father threatened to disinherit me. I reminded him that the trust from my maternal grandfather was beyond his control. He mentioned the burden this would place on my mother. I pointed out that her happiness had never before factored into his business decisions. You will end this dalliance immediately, he finally commanded. The engagement announcement for you and Sophia has already been sent to the Times. It runs this Sunday. I stood, straightening my jacket in an unconscious mirroring of his own habit. No, it doesn't. I'm going to call Sophia myself and apologize for putting her in this position, but the engagement is off. And as for my position at Wellington Global, consider this my 2 weeks' notice. The expression on his face as I walked out, a mixture of shock and fury, would have terrified me just months ago. Now, it simply confirmed I was finally making my own choices. Olivia was stunned when I appeared at her apartment that evening, explaining what had transpired. Ethan, I can't let you give up everything for me, she protested. Your family, your inheritance. I took her hands in mine. I'm not giving up everything. I'm choosing something better. Besides, I added with a smile, I have an MBA from Wharton and enough from my grandfather's trust to start something new. I'll be fine. Start what? She asked skeptically. That was the question, wasn't it? For the first time in my life, the path ahead wasn't meticulously planned. The possibility was both terrifying and exhilarating. The following weeks were a whirlwind of change. I moved out of my penthouse into a modest apartment in Brooklyn. Sophia, to her credit, was understanding, even relieved. We would have made each other miserable, she admitted. I was only saying yes to please my father too. My mother vacillated between tearful pleas to reconsider and tentative questions about Olivia. My father maintained a stony silence, having my belongings from the family estate delivered by courier rather than face me himself. Meanwhile, Olivia and I settled into a relationship without secrets or time constraints. I accompanied her to farmers' markets at dawn, learning to select the perfect ingredients. She listened patiently as I sorted through possible new career paths, never pushing but always supportive. The idea came to us over dinner with her family in their Corona, Queens apartment. Olivia's mother had prepared a feast, explaining the history and technique behind each traditional dish. Her father, a contractor who had built his business from nothing after immigrating from Mexico, asked pointed questions about my intentions toward his daughter. With all due respect, sir, I said, I love Olivia because she reminds me daily that true success isn't measured by wealth or status, but by creating something meaningful and sharing it with people you care about. Later that night, as we walked through her childhood neighborhood, Olivia squeezed my hand. You know, there's this storefront for rent on Bedford Avenue. I've been thinking about it for years, but never had the capital to make it happen. What kind of storefront? I asked. The perfect size for a small patisserie and cafe, not some fancy midtown destination, just a neighborhood place with amazing food that makes people's days better. 6 months later, Olivia's opened its doors in Williamsburg. We kept it simple, exceptional pastries, perfectly prepared coffee, and a rotating lunch menu that showcased Olivia's creativity and technical brilliance. I handled the business side, discovering that my financial acumen was far more satisfying when applied to something I genuinely cared about. The cafe thrived, developing a loyal following that extended beyond the neighborhood as food bloggers discovered Olivia's innovative approach to traditional pastries. When a prominent restaurant critic declared her conscious transcendent and our small business model refreshingly authentic, the lines began forming around the block. A year into our new venture, an unexpected visitor arrived just before closing time. My father stood awkwardly by the counter, looking out of place in his bespoke suit amid our casual decor. Mr. Wellington, Olivia greeted him professionally, though I could see the tension in her shoulders. What can I get for you? I'm told the chocolate croissants are exceptional, he said stiffly. I'm afraid we're sold out for today, she replied. Perhaps you'd like to try the Tres Leches cake? It's Ethan's favorite. A flash of something, regret, perhaps, crossed his face at the reminder of how little he knew about me now. Father, I said, emerging from the back office, This is a surprise. He straightened, adopting the posture he used for difficult business negotiations. Your mother insisted I come. She's concerned about you. As you can see, I'm doing well. He glanced around the cafe, taking in the simple but elegant space we'd created. Yes, I can see that. Your establishment seems quite popular. We're doing fine, I said, deliberately misinterpreting his comment. In fact, we're opening a second location in Park Slope next month. 2 locations in under 2 years, he noted, and I could see the businessman in him making calculations. Impressive growth. We're not looking to scale aggressively, I explained. Quality over quantity. Each location needs to maintain the standards Olivia has established. He nodded slightly, as if approving of the strategy despite himself. Your grandfather would have understood this, he said finally, gesturing around the cafe. He built his first company to last, not just to sell. I sometimes forget that lesson. Coming from my father, this was tantamount to an apology. I felt Olivia's hand slip into mine, a silent show of support. Would you like to stay for dinner? I offered. Olivia's parents are coming over. Her father's bringing his famous mall sauce. The look of alarm that crossed his face was almost comical. Perhaps another time. I should get back to your mother. As he turned to leave, he paused. Wellington Equity Partners is creating a fund for innovative food service concepts. Small businesses with growth potential but a commitment to quality. You might consider submitting your business plan. It was an olive branch, offered in the only way he knew how, through business. Not an apology, not full acceptance, but a beginning. I'll think about it, I said, and for the first time in our conversation, he actually looked at Olivia. The Times Review mentioned your sourdough technique. Most impressive. After he left, Olivia turned to me, eyebrows raised. Was that your father attempting to be nice? I laughed. In his own way, yes. Consider yourself honored. He doesn't compliment just anyone's sourdough technique. Life settled into a rhythm entirely different from what had been planned for me. Olivia and I married in a simple ceremony in her parents' backyard, with both our families in attendance. My father remained mostly silent throughout the event, but I caught him deep in conversation with Olivia's father over drinks, discussing the challenges of building something from nothing. 2 years and 3 cafe locations later, Olivia and I welcomed our daughter, Elena, named after her grandmother. My mother, to everyone's surprise, became a doting grandmother who regularly took the subway to Brooklyn to visit, eventually moving to a townhouse nearby. My father's transformation was more gradual. He began by bringing business associates to our cafes, proudly introducing Olivia as the creative genius behind the operation. Eventually, he started appearing on Sunday afternoons alone, quietly reading the paper in the corner while enjoying the pastries. One such Sunday, as I brought him his usual coffee and croissant, he looked up from his paper with an expression I rarely saw, contentment. You know, he said, I spent decades believing I knew exactly what success looked like. I was wrong. I glanced over at Olivia, expertly guiding a new hire through the intricacies of our espresso machine, then at Elena toddling between tables, charming our regular customers. I didn't reject everything you taught me, I told him, just the parts that didn't fit who I really am. He nodded, a small smile softening his usually stern features. Your grandfather used to say, a truly successful man builds a life, not just a fortune. I think he would approve of what you've built here. As if on cue, Olivia appeared with a plate of her latest creation, a delicate pastry incorporating flavors from both our family traditions. New recipe, she explained. I'm thinking of adding it to the permanent menu, but I need honest opinions first. My father took a careful bite, considering the flavors with the same concentration he once reserved for investment prospectuses. Remarkable, he pronounced. Absolutely remarkable. What he was referring to, the pastry, our business, or the life we had created against all odds, wasn't entirely clear. But watching Olivia beam at the compliment while our daughter climbed onto her grandfather's lap, I realized it didn't matter. Some people spend their entire lives chasing a narrowly defined idea of success, never realizing that the most valuable things can't be listed on a balance sheet or displayed in a mansion. Real wealth lies in the freedom to choose your own path and the courage to follow it, even when it leads somewhere unexpected. For me, that path led away from the empirical certainty of Wellington Global Investments to the beautiful chaos of flour-dusted countertops and early morning market runs. It led from obligation to passion, from inheritance to creation. And every day, as I open our cafe doors alongside the woman who helped me redefine everything I thought I knew about success, I am certain of one thing: I am richer now than I ever would have been as the heir to the Wellington fortune.